There are nearly 2 billion Muslims in the world, and they're living in countries which are responding to this virus in quite different ways. If we start in Indonesia, it has the highest number of coronavirus deaths in Asia after China. And while this travel restriction's a major intervention, some people are asking why it didn't come sooner. Bear in mind, we're only 2 days away from Ramadan starting, so many people have travelled already. Let's get an update on this. Here's Resti Waroyunia from the BBC.
So here in the capital, Jakarta, up to 1 million people have already made the journey home. Travelers are using masks, but they are not keeping apart. So the big fear is that many could spread the virus to rural areas across the country.
For Asih, it was a simple decision. She took the bus home to her village in Central Java before the ban came into place.
Assalamualaikum.
If I didn't go home, I would be very sad. Of course, I'm scared of getting infected with coronavirus. Actually, if I had the option to stay here, I would. But all of my family told me to go home. So I must go home whether I like it or not. All I can do is protect myself by wearing masks, gloves, carrying hand sanitizer.
This was last year. 20 million traveled home during Ramadan. If people decide to go ahead with their travel plans this week, the risk is that they would spread the virus. The decision to ban traveling is a U-turn from President Joko Widodo. Until today, the government was just advising the public not to participate in mudik. The move will upset a lot of Indonesians. Many are still planning to travel home anyway, while they can. However, health experts are warning it could be a disaster given the lack of testing and proper healthcare facilities in remote areas.
Mudik would increase the number of those hospitalized because of COVID-19 by 200,000. In Ramadan, we are supposed to be joyful, but some of us will end up in hospital and some of us will die because of circumstances that we can actually prevent.
If people decide to go ahead with their travel plans this week, the risk is that they would spread the virus. And by giving them a 48-hour window to travel, it is unclear how effective the government ban will be. Resti Waroyunia, BBC News, Jakarta.
The World Health Organization has published advice for Ramadan. You can find it on its website. It says cancelling social and religious gatherings should seriously be considered. Well, we've been talking to Sophia Smith-Gaylor, a religion reporter for the BBC World Service. She has more details.
Essentially, the guidelines are to obey the general rules that are in place in your country. So where we're seeing enormous lockdown measures, where mosques are already closed, the World Health Organization is recommending virtual alternatives. In other countries where there possibly are still mosques open or the lockdown isn't quite so severe, they're offering mitigating measures for people to deal with. For example, when it comes to social distancing, especially both during congregational prayer, but charity during this month as well, limiting the amount of time spent outdoors or at an event, minimizing the flow of people in and out of an event. So it's a bit of both.
Some other important details. We know Saudi Arabia's top religious body has urged Muslims around the world not to congregate for prayer during Ramadan. Bear in mind, Saudi Arabia has already closed all of its mosques, including the Grand Mosque in Mecca. We've also had a significant statement in Iran. The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is saying Muslims are not required to fast during Ramadan if doing so poses a threat to their health. Well, for all these changes, of course, Ramadan continues and Muslims want to continue its religious and cultural traditions as best possible. Here's Sophia again on how different countries are doing their best to make that possible.
When it comes to congregational prayer, we have mosques from Saudi Arabia to Iran that have suspended the traditional congregational prayers that we see at this time of the year. But there are some countries, for example, Pakistan, which still have lots of mosques open. And what they have done instead are issue guidelines around social distancing. But what about culture and charity? We've seen that countries like Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore are suspending their traditional Ramadan bazaars, which would be full of people and full of food, full of clothes on sale. And charity, traditionally, you might see enormous meals for people to the needy as Muslims break their fast. And we're being that really limited at this time of year as well.
And so, as with many religious and cultural activities that make up all of our lives, some of those can continue at home, but more communal activities are going to have to shift online. And for many Muslims, for those hugely important moments when they would have gathered during Ramadan, they're now going to have to gather virtually. So it's definitely going to be different, no doubt, though Muslim leaders in the UK have been telling the BBC the essence of Ramadan can be maintained.